Hey everyone, so these are the astrological highlights for the rest of the first half of July. If you missed it, I also put out a video for July 1st through 4th. Just because of scheduling, I had to do these in two separate videos. Normally I've been just kind of doing them in like the first half of the month, second half of the month. So anyhow, if you want to make sure that you don't miss any of the astrological highlight videos on the horizon or any of the bi-weekly or monthly tarot readings, be sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss what's in store for you as we go through the months. So this particular chart that we're starting with on July 5th is coming out a little bit later in the day. I wanted to have this out earlier, but it's coming out a little bit later in the day. I still felt like it was important to mention because this particular transit that I'm going to be talking about goes until about a little after 11:30 on from the Pacific time zone. So I feel like it'll still be relevant for those of you who catch this right when it gets uploaded and comes out to be cognizant of it as you go through the rest of your evening, or for some of you just to have as something to look back at in retrospect. So here we're taking a look at Mercury, which is going to be in square, or is, because I'm recording this on the day of, is in square to Chiron. And so with this kind of a challenging aspect between these planets, what we're being asked to do here is to communicate consciously, right? Because it could very much be communication coming from a place of pain or unconsciousness in that way. So you want to make sure that you're communicating consciously and that you take some time to process what feels tender or painful about either what you want to communicate before you communicate it or what's been communicated to you today. So this may not come up for some of you if you happen to be someone who, let's say, works from home on your own and don't really need to or aren't really going to be interacting with anyone on this particular day. So if that's kind of you, then maybe you won't really notice this. You might hear it from people around you or something like that, but not really something that you might experience. So just keep in mind, though, if that's not you, this is a day where you want to keep in mind that words can cut deep. So process the fuck out of your emotions. Make sure that you are not spewing or projecting stories from some kind of past wounding or from a current maybe sensitive or vulnerable place without getting to a place of consciousness about what really needs to be communicated and to do it in a clear way. Altogether, I would say if you can avoid having those kinds of conversations that might be surrounding these kinds of themes that are tender, I might avoid it. So I might schedule that for another day. So just something to have a heads up about. And I've actually already today, before recording this, had one conversation about other conversations that were happening in this person's world that were surrounding these themes already. I was like, wow, that's so interesting. It's just already perfectly playing out. So I happen to be somebody who works from home and I don't necessarily need to interact with anyone today. It's not necessary. So for me, I'm kind of, I think, in the clear. We'll see. But, so that's just like, I think it's interesting when it really gets mirrored in that way. So all right, let's take a look at the next one. All right, so here we're looking at Mercury, another Mercury transit, and it is in a friendly aspect. It is going to be in sextile to Uranus in Taurus. And I think that if you've been looking for a creative day for brainstorming, like this would be a boost that you could get potentially for projects or, anything that has to do with like creativity or that you need for brainstorming. So, and with the moon actually moving into Pisces also on this day, I think that adds an additional kind of watery element that could really boost some of these intuitive hits or these like sudden insights that we get into maybe something that we're trying to create or invent, right? Like something new, something innovative that we're working on or working with. So, just something to mention. If that doesn't apply to your world, then it might come through in other ways, but I just wanted to give some kind of example for that. So, just maybe look out for sudden or unexpected insights here. I am a little bit curious, just as a side note, to see if there are any people that are getting kind of these hits of insight around relationships because of the fact that Uranus is in Venus's house, or one of Venus's houses, which is Taurus. And so because of everything she's been going through in this shadow period that she's in, and she's going retrograde official on the 22nd, I kind of just wonder if it'll pull in some of these topics. Not sure, but I'm just kind of curious about that. So I'd love to hear about it if you feel like that flows and it seems to resonate with you on this particular day, right? So overall, I'd say that this is a great day for, brainstorming, creativity, taking note of ideas that are generated today. So if you have like a note app that you keep ideas like running, ideas in, or like a journal, I would make sure that you just kind of carry it with you today and take note of those things. But if you really want to talk about like some intuitive downloads for real, then I would say you'll want to take note of July 9th when Mercury is trine Neptune, and we're going to look at that next. So June 9th, we have Mercury, and it is going to be in a trine to Neptune in Pisces. So Neptune at home, where it likes to be, and we have them in trine. So it's also, just to say in the background, we have this working up, like Mercury is at 27 degrees and we have Pluto at 29, and they're going to be in opposition on the following day on the 10th. So it's always in that time where we are getting close in degrees to an exact aspect that we start to really maybe feel it. So just know you might start to feel some of the undercurrent of that. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide, but just kind of bookmark that and keep that in mind. So, but let's get back to Mercury trine Neptune, right? So despite Neptune being retrograde, this is still a lovely blending of these two energies, right? So it's a trine, which is just such an easy flow of like the gifts going back and forth between the two of them. So think like gifts of intuition and insight, or like flowing inspiration, flowing imagery. Again, definitely very great for creatives, but not to, say that if you're not a creative or an artist of some kind that it's not going to benefit you. Just it might show up in a different way, right? I would definitely, again, like this is one of those days I would take note of any kind of intuitive hits that you have in like a journal or a notes app, right? This could be a really lovely flow for the day, like getting into the zone, like getting into that flow zone for whatever it is that you're working with or dreaming up, especially, if you're like kind of planning for how you want your life to unfold and kind of feeling into, envisioning into the way that you want your life to look and be and feel in all areas of your life. This could be a great day for that. So, and if you are a creative type, like just an example, if you're like a writer who writes fantasy or fiction, this could be awesome for that. So that said, it is in retrograde, Neptune is, and so I just like to note like that may or may not, it's kind of like the basic, let me back up there. So it's basically like if you were looking through a lens and it had a smudge on it, right? It's not completely as clear as it could be. So your vision is not maybe as clear as it could be. So here is where I would say, yes, work with this beautiful energy. Also, just maybe watch yourself for, if you notice that there are intuitive hits or flowy download things that you're getting that are like way overly optimistic. I'm not saying don't be optimistic, but I'm saying like just kind of note it, right? Don't let yourself run away and get carried away with that, because it is in retrograde, it can kind of be like that smudge on the lens. So you may or may not be seeing it exactly clearly. This is where we can like maybe see things for what we want them to be instead of what they are, or even in the opposite direction, right? If you get like some kind of intuitive hits that are really concerning and that feel, anxiety inducing in some way, take note of it. Like I would say take it with a grain of salt. Just make a note for yourself, and maybe if you're concerned about it, then do some background prep. If it's something that you got an intuitive hit about what's coming up on the horizon, then maybe just do a little extra prep work to make sure that you're prepared to pivot if you actually do need to, and if that was a very correct intuitive hit, right? So that's just something to keep in mind, Also, just like on the world stage, I would say it'll be interesting to see what kinds of stories come out. I don't have any predictions for that at this point in my astrological studies and career at this point, so I just am more so curious to hear about other people's stories, and I like really observing and seeing like how it gets mirrored on the world stage, especially when we're dealing with something that is an outer planet, right? It has to do more with things on a collective level, and so because of the retrograde aspect, we could see things that are just kind of like exactly what I was talking about, but coming out in terms of like news stories where it's not really what it seems like it is, or, you know, it's just kind of like the vision is kind of like blurry, or it's, you know, a little deceptive, or it's not quite right in some way. But because again we're dealing with a trine, I'm gonna say like more so I'm gonna focus on just like how that is a very lovely aspect, and this is usually two planets in a trine are just kind of like feeding each other their gifts, and so I just more so want to highlight how there's a potential to really just take advantage of the energy on this day. So, and if you can't arrange your schedule for it, don't worry. I'm not someone who's just like, live your life by astrology, absolutely 100,000,000% always make all of your decisions just by this. I really just give this information because I like having a heads up, and I want you guys to have a heads up so that if it's possible, if that's something that is appealing to you, you can take advantage of the information. So, all right, with that, let's get into the next day, which has a lot more going on. All right, so we've got a bunch of things going on today. We've got Mars moving into Virgo, we've got Mercury moving into Leo, and we've got something else working in the background as well, which is Mercury's going to be making an opposition to Pluto. So let's start breaking this down one by one. So here we have like Mars is entering into Virgo, and it'll be here until August 27th. So think of this as like the getting things done time, right? This can be a really good period to just kind of like tie up loose ends, work on projects. Like this can be a time where you have the drive for like really getting things done efficiently and with precision. Like to your specificity specifically, and working on anything like detail oriented would really be good. Like you would probably have the drive to really focus on that. So think about, are there things like bigger projects that you're really needing to like build on each step, building on the next? Well, this is that time, like from now until August 27th, that you could have a boost in really being able to focus on those things. So, you know, very different vibe from what we just came from when it was in Leo, and it might turn down like some of the drama just a few notches. But then we have Mercury moving into Leo today. So, you know, we trade off one for the other almost. So this could dial up the Leo-ness of conversation. So think like sensationalism and hyperbole and, you know, drama for the sake of it, drama for the plot, essentially. So, and with Venus going retrograde during this period of time, because it will be here for approximately 3 weeks, right? So till the 28th, so approximately almost not quite 3 weeks. And during that time, Venus is actually going to be going retrograde during that period. And so, you know, I can't help but like think that I maybe want to like sit back with some popcorn and just kind of like watch how it unfolds in the world around me. This could actually be like very fun, bombastic storyteller types coming out of the woodwork and being very entertaining in that way. And this could also be drama. So, you know, and not to say that I revel in the drama, more so I think that I'm kind of feeling, and maybe I'll be wrong about this, but I feel like I'm a little in the safe zone because I happen to be single right now. So I'm kind of like, whew, you know, maybe on that level. But otherwise, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing for Mercury to be in Leo. It's just like, just think of like all of these themes could be up. So it could be very fun. Very, very bright and very much, like muchness. And also there could be some verbal drama, some communication drama in that space as well, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, that said, earlier in the day, I have this pulled for 9:11 p.m. at night because I just wanted to be able to show Mars and Mercury being in the signs, like having already ingressed in there. But earlier in the day, Mercury will be at 29 degrees in Cancer still, and it will be in a direct opposition exact with Pluto, which is retrograde in Capricorn. And so there is that opposition. And when it does move into Leo, it'll still only be 1 degree away. So we'll still be feeling it all the way late throughout the day, right? So, this might pack a little bit of a challenging punch in the, like, there might be an undercurrent of that. So even though I'm saying kind of Mercury going into Leo could be a lot of fun, actually, it could be, in all the ways that I was saying, but it also, just on this first day into the next day a little bit, could be a little bit challenging, perhaps. This could be a clash of wills in communication, or like argumentative kind of energy, that type of like argumentative in nature. And so on the more toxic side, right, this is a challenging aspect, right? It's in opposition, and usually that has to do with relational aspects, the way that we're relating to other people. And so you want to kind of watch yourself here, right? So, and watch other people, just maybe give a little bit more grace and understand that other people may not be getting a heads up. They may not really be aware about this and be able to like kind of watch themselves. So yeah, but on the more toxic end, this can be kind of caustic, harmful communication. And, Mercury also rules the mind. So let's not forget that it can also be our thoughts, right? It can be, in this challenging aspect of Pluto, this can be a struggle with darker thoughts or fanatical types of fixations, or like paranoid victim thinking, and on the communicative side, as I was saying, like all the things I was saying, but it could also be shit talking for the sake of manipulation, so just watch yourself and check yourself, and just, again, like, the period of time that Mercury will be in Leo for that almost 3-week period of time, I don't think that it's all going to be like this, because we won't have this opposition the whole time. I'm just more so saying, like, that's kind of, we enter into it, and on that particular day, I would just watch out for that. Mainly just that day. I don't think we'll feel too much of it too far into the following day on the 11th. So, all right, so let's get to our last slide on the 14th. So I like that we are finishing off on this really lovely note. So we are taking a look at the sun in a friendly sextile aspect over to Uranus. And, this is, on the morning of the 14th, and it'll go until about like maybe like mid-ish morning on the 15th, the following day. So we have like this whole block of time that we get to have this energy, and I feel like this could be a burst of goodness, like possible sudden opportunities or moments of brilliance, or definitely I think moments of brilliance could be really cool, but also just original creative kinds of breakthroughs, right? This energy feels to me very free-spirited, and so for anyone who has been craving more autonomy or independence or wanting to individuate in any kind of way, this will boost that feeling, which can feel incredibly liberating and like recharging to your sense of self. And with that, I think that there's also another factor that might be playing a part. There's this building sextile that's happening between Neptune and Pluto, and they're only 2 degrees apart. And remember, this is not going to be exact for a little while still, but it's building, right? And when it's only a couple degrees like this away, it's in that building up to an exact aspect where we tend to really like feel and see the themes of what that's going to be like more so, right? Like it feels more pressurized in that way. And so we have that building sextile between the two of them. And so I think that perhaps this kind of, if you are someone who is really feeling the energy that I was just talking about, like the autonomy, the independence, individuation, and just like, liberating, kind of recharging your sense of self, all of that really goodness, right? Which can be just like so empowering and energizing, electric even, right? Thinking of just Uranus, how electric that can be. I think that this could have deeper reaching kind of ripples into like deeper themes around like the kinds of spiritual quests that we have as like humans, like that our souls want to reach for or to touch. And maybe just kind of like deeper spiritual implications that are felt in another way. Perhaps I'm just kind of speculating here just because that energy is building, and so I think it's a potential, I think it's a possibility. So one small note that I want to make, one possible downside that I can see to this really awesome energy is that those who are maybe in relationships that have been on the rocks or are on the verge of separating, this liberating energy could exacerbate that for if one or both of you are feeling that way. And so just a small side note though, like I'm not saying that this is an overwhelming thing, but I just think I would be remiss to not talk about that, just because of, given that we have Venus in shadow, it's going retrograde soon, it's been building, it's been a really interesting thing. Like these themes have definitely been up in everyone I've seen around me. So I think it's worth mentioning that I don't say these things to worry people, you know, if anything, it's because I want a heads up myself. And so I would rather be prepared and kind of be able to like watch myself, my thoughts, my feelings, and like navigate more consciously if I were in that situation. I don't happen to be in that situation, so, you know, but just as a note for anyone out there who might be listening to this, you know, just kind of noticing that, but not to be afraid of it, right? So that's all I would say. But mainly I would rather focus on just like how awesome this energy can really feel between the sun and Uranus, and how electrifying it can really feel like that. I've felt that so many times in my life where it's intoxicating. So yeah, I kind of like rounding out this like first half of the month with this. Now, the second half of July, we have a ton going on. So you'll want to make sure that you catch this astrological highlight video for the second half of July. We have a ton going on, like some important stuff. So if this felt insightful, if you got something from this, please consider giving the video a like, as it is something that helps me in the algorithm as I'm building this channel and lets me know that this is useful and helpful for people. And if you don't want to miss the second half of July and what the stars have in store for you, what the planets have in store for you, then make sure to hit the subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss anything on the horizon. So thank you for your time. Thanks for being here, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.